How's it
How are
going?
you?
How you doing? How you doing? How you doing? Joe and Alessandro?
That's
right.
right. That's right.
How was my pronunciation of Alessandro? Is that okay?
It was perfect. It was perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I got my wife's family. Some of them live in Ferrara in Italy.
Oh, nice. That's funny.
cool.
That's where my last name is from that area. My dad is not from there, but his ancestors are from that area. So that's very interesting.
Caparo and of course Venice. That's the big one, isn't it? Venice. Yeah, cool. Well, lovely to meet you guys.
It's really good to meet you.
Canada. I don't know anything about Canada. I do apologize.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Great hockey team. And you love to drink beer. I know you love to drink beer.
Exactly. Those are the two most important things. If you know those two things, you've got it all down. That's right. Yeah, and I'm in Montreal, which is like a great hockey city too. So we're all about the hockey team and beer. That's our.
Yeah, I mean the hockey team is good, but not as good as the one here in Tampa.
Yeah, that's right.
Right, yeah. That's the local banter. Oh, and Ryan Reynolds. I'm from Wales, see? So Wrexham is North Wales. I'm South Wales.
Ah, okay.
But he owns Wrexham Football Club, doesn't he?
Yeah.
I've got a head like a sieve. I've actually put it on a massive board here, so I know.
You're a pro. You're a pro.
I'm like,
hey, I love it.
I'm awful with names. I'm like the world's worst person for names.
You know what?
So
I was the one sort of like texting with you on Instagram, and like I knew your name was Simon, and I was calling you Simon. But then before you jumped on, we're just like, I need to make sure his name's actually Simon because I'm terrible with names too. We're just like Googling your channel, and just Simon Real Ale Craft Beer. That's okay. That's his name.
Yeah.
We're good.
Yeah, cool.
So we're on the same boat there. Like I asked him, that was the first question I asked him when I jumped on the call. I said, his name is Simon, right? Like I don't want to mess that up. So
yeah, we don't want to piss him off just to start off right away.
Yeah. I'm drinking from. You guys don't really get the perfect draft, do you, in America?
No.
It's such a shame, isn't it? Like 6 liter mini kegs of beer. You know, some of it Budweiser, some of it Peroni and stuff.
Yeah.
Not great, but it's great. Some of the beers, like this is Theakston's Old Peculier at 5.6%, and it's.
I actually watched
really
the
nice
episode you did on that one recently. That sounded amazing. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah. It's just still on it. How does this work then? I love to do these interviews things. Thank you very much for having me on.
Of course. We just like to, the whole point of this was we just like talking to people in the beer world. Like one of the things that we realized, we've been doing this, and I know you've been doing this for a lot longer than we have, obviously. We've been doing this for 4 years, so about 10 years less than you have. And, we've been, one of the things we wanted to do when we started is we wanted to talk to people. We wanted to do the channel, but we wanted to talk to people. We like meeting people, especially people who like beer and talking about beer. So we think, okay, let's reach out to the people who have been doing this the longest. So you were one person, obviously, we wanted to talk to and just have a chat with. We talked to, Johnny from the Craft Beer Channel, Lara Curran, who's like the Guinness Guru, or was the Guinness Guru. Like people who are kind of like have a presence on YouTube in the beer world. We want to talk to everybody, and just because it's such a fascinating world. Like the beer YouTube world is so fascinating, and it's such like a subculture, but at the same time, there's so many people that are passionate about it and so many people that are interested by it. And the people who do it are such characters. Everybody's a character, we find, and everybody's got a story to tell, which is so cool.
Absolutely. And the thing with YouTube is that it brings people together.
Yeah.
And these interviews, I always find it a massive honor when I'm invited to do something like this. It gives me, like, I review every single day.
Yeah.
And this gives me the kind of the drive, if you like, and it really gives you enthusiasm to carry on when, you guys are Canada, Italy, America, and you want to speak to me in little old Wales. It's wonderful. And it really is. I find it a great honor to be invited on. So thank you very much.
Thank you for jumping on, man. It's
Thank you. It's a pleasure, really. It's an honor for us to have you here on our channel.
So if you have your beer out already, I guess, Alessandro, we should open our beer. So we don't know, we haven't communicated about which ones we're starting with here. So I'll let you start, buddy. Which one are you?
This is going to be very funny because I think Simon is going to really like this.
Oh, this is going to be good.
Okay.
Whenever he's excited about a beer that he's going to be drinking, it always means it's a good one. So
this is a beer that I knew about. I hadn't seen it available until literally last week when I went to shop for this episode and a couple of other episodes that we're going to film. And I saw it. I said, oh, this is just so perfect. And what I am drinking, I've never tried it before, is the Theakston Old Peculier.
No, really?
Well, look at that. Fantastic. So we're both drinking more or less a keg version. Yeah, fantastic. That's great.
That's great.
You're gonna love it.
It's your synergy. That's crazy.
Yeah, I'm so excited to try it because I had seen you reviewing it. I had seen your VS battle with the Abbott Ale that I know Joe has tried, and I haven't had yet.
I really like. I can get that in cans. I really like it.
So I really enjoyed like the way you described the two, and I was like, "Oh, that's so cool." I wish I could try that because you used the word in your VS, like which I enjoyed. Like this one here, you said is more mysterious, it's darker, richer, and I love that. Like from and the way you described it, it just like sounded like something that I would have liked. Then I saw it on the shelf, and I said, like, I can't believe I found it. Like this is gonna be perfect. And then you're drinking it today out of the keg. Like it's just fantastic.
We'll talk about that beer in particular in a moment. But Joe, what are you drinking, mate?
Oh yeah, okay. So I've talked about this beer a little bit to Alessandro. Like I've actually talked to Zeroff about this, but there's this amazing microbrewery in Montreal here where I'm living that I really, really love. And they started off doing sort of like Czech-inspired lagers. And that was sort of their specialty, which was really cool. And they got, they had like the Luker tap. So they did like the Czech style pours. And they did this really interesting thing that nobody else did here where they had sort of a pour menu. So you would choose the beer that you wanted, and they'd have a menu of different types of pours with different levels of foam, right? Like the Pilsner Raquel popularized. And so I just love them. And their beers are all delicious, really tasty, good stuff.
Okay.
And so they make a Weizenbock that I have never tried before. And so I picked this up. Yeah. And they're called Silo Brewing in Montreal, or it's actually French.
Can I have a look at the can? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just really, really, and all their cans are, I love their branding. It's all just like plain white with a black singular image and kind of like black typeface.
It's just out of shot.
Oh, sorry. Is that good for you?
Oh, there we go. Yeah, look at that. Yeah, that looks really cool. Really cool.
And
big fan of German beer.
And all their beers are just like, really clean. That's what I really love about it. There's always like 2 or 3 ingredients you can really pinpoint that are really strong in the aroma and the taste and just really delicious beers. So cheers. Let's get these poured out so we can start our...
Let's get these poured out. So when you pour your Theakston Old Peculier, Alessandro.
I'm all ears. Yes.
When you pour that, now I'll tell you the story very quickly. So it's in a town called Masham in North Yorkshire. Now, it's a funny place. You can't get a train there. It's like a one-way in, one-way out town. If you wanted to, of course, people like to visit the brewery, but of course you can't really drive because you want to have a couple of pints.
Yeah, so exactly.
The only way is to get a bus, and the bus is every 1.5 hours, and it goes into this tiny little village of Masham. It's really small place, and it's dominated by this great big brewery. So it's actually a brewing town. So the town grew up around the brewery. They decided to build the brewery, and then they built the town around it. A bit like Greene King down in Bury St Edmunds. They call that a brewing town. Yeah. So the brewery came kind of... Well, there was always settlements before, but the main kind of influx of people came when the brewery was built. And the other one, go on, give it a pour. The other brewery, which is kind of like that, but it's even more in the middle of nowhere, is that Hook Norton brewery that I visited recently, the Steam brewery. I'm not sure if you've seen that on my channel.
Yeah.
That's another brewery that the town kind of nearby. It was kind of brewery first. Look at that! There you go. Let's compare.
Cheers, guys. Simon, thank you so much for joining us again. Cheers.
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 Prost.
So obviously we do want to get into like everything to do with, because you've been doing this for so long, so we want to know about the origins of everything. But I think you mentioned Greene King, and this might be we've already started the conversation, but a good conversation starter about beer specifically. So being here, obviously, we don't know the true spec of Greene King and like the power in the market space that they have in the UK. But I can get like one of their beers, like I mentioned, the Abbeydale is the only kind of one that I can get here. But
Yeah.
they are major like landlords, right? They own what, hundreds of pubs. And so what's like the sentiment towards Greene King where you are in the UK? Are they viewed as like this big company that's coming and taking over all these little pubs, and sort of, is it a negative thing, or are they viewed as somebody who are sort of keeping pubs alive?
It's for me, Greene King, they in the beer industry, so they won, I think it was Abbeydale Reserve won the last Canberra Great British Beer Festival Award for the year. Wow. And it was so much kind of anti-sentiment towards that. There was so much pushback towards that nomination. The people were coming up to me saying, "Can you believe this has happened? This is bad for the industry." But I always, the biggest thing for me. So I was in that camp before I went there. I was on a bus with Pete Brown, traveling around. We were on Barcelona way, Catalonia. We were going around the breweries there, and I made this joke about Greene King IPA. Who would drink that kind of stuff? A flippant comment, if you like. And Pete turned around to me and he said, "You need to go there. You need to go there and visit it for yourself." And I chose to do that. When I got back from Barcelona, I contacted Greene King. And they were the most inviting, lovely people you'd ever want to meet. And I think it's the human aspect. I think once you kind of get there and you speak to people and you realise that, they do care. They really do care. And the head brewer's really kind of interested to brew new things and kind of do what he can. And then you see the town that's grown up around this brewery. And it makes you... It stopped me making those flippant comments regarding Greene King. I have nothing but, I mean, you've probably seen it there in the States, in that when breweries grow to a certain size, it's so difficult to hang on to that quality. Yeah. Think of Stone Brewing Company. When I was drinking Stone beer over here, Great British Beer Festival again, 2012, 12 years ago, a beer was launched. Sublimely Self-Righteous was there. Stone IPA was there, and the fuss and the excitement about it all was fantastic. Brewdog, the same thing. Young up and coming breweries, very exciting. But they grew to a certain size, and I personally don't think that Stone IPA is not a patch on its kind of form itself. So I think my mindset changes when a brewery gets to a certain size, because I just think that they struggle so hard to keep hold of that kind of micro quality that they once had. I'm sure Greene King had it too at one stage in their early life.
Is that where the negative sort of sentiments came from? Like the fact that they're going to get to a certain size and people found that the quality was going downhill a little bit? Or was it that people were worried that they would just eat up all these smaller breweries and then eventually reduce their quality as well?
The biggest one for that were actually Marston's Brewery. Do you ever get Pedigree out there?
No, I don't. At least do you get it?
No, I haven't seen it. No.
So I'd say that the more recent one with that is Marston. The recent culprit is Marston's. Have you heard of a beer called Hobgoblin?
Yeah.
Hobgoblin was brewed by Wychwood Brewery in Oxford.
Okay.
Marston's Brewery bought the brewery early 2000s, and within 10 years, that was a historic brewery there in Wychwood, middle of the Wychwood Forest, beautiful kind of tourist trap. People travel to the brewery a bit like Cook Norton.
Yeah.
And they closed it down. They closed it down. It's all brewed now at Marston's. Jennings Brewery was another one right up north. Jennings Brewery was another. They had a beer called Snecklifter. That was closed down. Marston's bought Brains. The Brains pubs, the Brains pub estates in Wales here. Yeah, I think the sentiment then when a brewery's bought and closed down, or when jobs get lost, I think that's when the bad sentiment comes in.
Right.
Yeah,
that makes
I
sense.
hope that answers your question.
Oh, you did, yeah.
Oh.
I've always been really curious about that because just to wrap that up, because the pub culture is very different in the UK than it is here in Canada, and from what I've seen, I think in the US too, where like those chains of pubs, like, you know, there's Weatherspoons, I know there's the Greene King pubs, like those sort of like major landlords that own dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of pubs, that doesn't exist here. So I'm so fascinated by that culture because people love pub culture so much in the UK. I'm always curious about what people think about that and how they view those bigger companies that are sort of like seemingly coming through and eating everything up. So no, you answered it perfectly. Thanks.
Well, but just to touch on this as well, because it gets even more complicated. So what happened, of course, Marston's bought the Jennings pubs, they bought the Witchwoods pubs, they bought the Brains pubs. So they had this massive pub estate, and they realised that they overstretched in the 2019 COVID. They realised that they'd overstretched themselves, and in the end, they had to basically sell out to Carlsberg. So now, in the UK, all of Banks's pubs, all of Marston's pubs, all of the Witchwood pubs, if they had, I'm not sure how many they had, Jennings pubs, it's all now owned by Carlsberg. So Carlsberg is one of the biggest pub companies now in the UK.
That's crazy.
The other one, Weatherspoons, of course, and then you've got Star Inns, which is Heineken.
Okay.
So yeah, the
Star
big
Inns?
fish always come along and eat a smaller fish.
Yeah.
But a bit like how in the 1980s, when that kind of happened with, we had a big pub company called Courage. They end up getting that big that they just capitulate. A bit like the Roman Empire. It gets so big that it just kind of collapses in on itself. And I can foresee a future in the next 5 to 10 years where your Heinekens, your Carlsbergs, they won't be able to carry on with owning as many pubs as they do in the UK. Certainly holding them to a certain quality of, without sticky tables and the food quality going down and the beer quality going down. Nothing worse than a sticky table.
No, it's the worst.
It's the worst. Oh, you're right. I don't want to change the subject necessarily, but I do want to ask something because I feel like you've been at least in my mind, you're one of the great like beer YouTubers, the ones that have started like a certain trend, a certain way of reviewing beer, talking about beer, and so on. So I'm very fascinated to hear what your perception is from like how has things changed since you started? What made you start in the first place? Get just a little bit of your explanation of that, how the journey was and how it will be.
Right. So this started in Christmas 2009. My brother-in-law came up from England, Salisbury, and he brought up a book called The Real Ale Pub Guide. And my original name was Real Ale Guide.
Yeah.
Before Real Ale Craft Beer. And I was fascinated by this book. This book was full of pubs. And I was thinking, I want to visit every single pub.
Yeah.
Before the channel even started. So I went to the supermarket. I picked up like a box of mixed beers and opened the box, and there was a bottle of Hobgoblin there. So I was watching one Christmas, dark, cold, bit bored. I was watching a mobile phone review on YouTube. They were the very, very kind of first kind of review things, weren't they? Mobile phones, if you remember. Android was very early. Yeah. Everybody was excited about Android, and
right.
The first iPhones were coming out, and you had people just doing the phone. I can't off the top of my head. Mark S. Brownlee, he was doing the
okay, yeah, that rings a bell.
The phone stuff. He's got 10 million subscribers now. So I was watching a phone review whilst drinking the Hobgoblin out of the bottle, and I just for fun put into the keyboard in this YouTube search bar Hobgoblin review. Yeah. And there was a man called J.J. Davin, Joe D, American.
Okay. Haven't heard of him.
Probably right up there with being one of the very, very first YouTubers. Wow. He's still around, but he does these kind of live streams on a Friday night with his friends. So he still has his YouTube channel. But he was the first one to do a Hobgoblin video on YouTube. So he went, grabbed all of the Hobgoblin, he went, this beer is from Oxfordshire in the UK. in his lovely
It is American, yeah.
Louisiana, like this American accent. And I went, and it was just a light bulb moment. I went, oh, we got all these names, we got all these different beers, these interesting beers in the UK that I had to pronounce and whatnot. And I just gave it a go. It was just like wow, I can do this. I've got so much beer all around me.
Yeah,
I can do this, and I went for it. Yeah, I went for it.
So 14 years. 14 years you've been.
So
posting.
the second part of your question was it how do I feel about how the landscapes or how it is for me now? Was it that?
Yeah, a little bit, just kind of like how it's changed your view over the years. Like that was a great origin story. Like I love that you also remembered specifically the beer. But I can imagine when you do it for so long. I mean, we've only done it for 4 years, and we've evolved in a way, right? Like, and you, yeah, I'm sure you have too. But how has your view changed? Like, what is your look now? Like after 14 years.
I'm going to give you an exclusive to your channel here, and I'm going to say that it's evolved. It's evolved over. So I was fine for the first 12, 13 years, absolutely fine, and I started to fizzle and slightly burn out with the single beer reviews.
Yeah,
just this kind of like 8-minute to 10-minute format of opening, pouring. There was so much hazy IPA on the market. I think that had I just found myself thinking this isn't just another hazy IPA I'm reviewing, and that was the first time after 13 years that I started to feel a little bit bored, if I'm honest with you. And it took a long, long time for it to happen. So I knew I had to evolve it. So what I found fun was before that I started introducing junk food to the channel. So it must have been creeping in before that anyway, because I've been food for 6 years. But I just found that what was a lot more fun was kind of like battle videos. I've seen that you guys are doing a lot of kind of like Guinness and stuff, and Guinness versus Murphy's and whatnot on your channel. And I found pitting one beer up against another, or
those are fun, right?
Oktoberfest, and it's so much more fun.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
And now the other part of the kind of growth of the channel is that it struggled for a long, long time. Negative in terms of kind of like having to hold down full-time jobs and then part-time jobs and then kind of scraping to make it full-time. It took a long, long time. But I'm now in a position where I've got a little bit every month to go, hey, I can jump in a car now and travel 150 miles, and
that's amazing.
I've got a little bit of a budget.
Yeah.
And that's quite exciting.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to kind of like go and visit these Hook Nortons and just rock up, and Jeremy Clarkson's pub the other day, the Farmer's Dog.
I really enjoyed that video you did, because I've been curious about Jeremy Clarkson's brewery and the far. So that was a really cool video that you did.
So I've got a bit of a budget now, so it's evolved into a state where I can start to do stuff, and of course that snowballs then, because people really like to see that. People really like to see that kind of out and about content. It did happen for a long time. It happened for a long time, but it was kind of like breweries,
right?
Like almost like sponsoring, if you like. They would pay for your train, your hotel. If you're with them for 2 days, you're just talking about, say, a certain brewery's beers for 2 days. Like I brewed this collaboration with St Ives Brewery here called Destination Double IPA, but it was 2 days of being in St Ives Brewery and just centering around St Ives Brewery, where now I'm properly independent with it. Now I've got a little bit of a budget. I can go, hey, I can do this, I can do that. Yeah. And of course you can say a little bit more as well.
So what you did a collaboration, is that your logo on the can there?
Oh, I've got many collaborations.
Really? That's so cool.
Yeah, there's the...
Oh yeah, look at that.
That's so cool.
Oh yeah, look.
I've done how many? I've probably got 20 collaborations here.
Oh man, we need to start doing collaborations with breweries, man.
Going to Norway, brewing peat smoke barrel aged imperials.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
That's a cool box. I love the beers that come in like those, almost like Scotch boxes.
Yeah. There's another
look
one.
at that. So which one was your favorite? Just if you had to, now that you're looking at all 20, if you had to pick one, that comes without saying. I got to know now.
It's close between this one. This was fantastic.
Is that your
Pineapple
face on the can there?
Weizenbock. If you ever have the opportunity to brew a pineapple Weizenbock, go for it. It's the strength of that kind of 8% ABV helps to carry the pineapple. I didn't think it was going to work, but it turned out amazing.
Drinking a Weizenbock right now, I could see how that would go really well like that. Yeah.
Have you heard of More Beer Company?
Oh my God, how many? That's amazing.
That's probably my
favorite. Walker. I love that.
Wow.
That's probably my favorite. They got a famous beer here in the UK, Bristol, United Kingdom.
Yeah.
Called Old Walker or something. It was a 7% beer. And I said, hey, can we do like something on the Freddie Walker, Old Freddie Walker, the beer was called.
Okay. Fantastic
beer, 7%. And I said, it's one of my favourite beers for you. Can we do something, maybe like a session version at maybe 5%, 4.8%?
Yeah.
He said, yeah, let's do steady water. Instead of just like 7%, like this one's going to be a bit steady.
Yeah. So you're doing this full time now.
Beautiful old ale.
This is your full time gig now. You don't you don't have another full time job or anything.
So I went full time during the pandemic.
Okay, that's amazing.
It was a really weird time because most businesses were struggling, of course, with what was going on.
Yeah.
And I was one of the rare companies, because of being able to live stream.
Oh my God, yeah.
And because I had a fairly big following, I was able. I kind of doubled the business doubled in the years.
Well, we started during the pandemic. That's kind
of you probably started just being locked in, drinking beer.
Exactly. We would do these Zoom calls with each other because we always like the idea. So the beer brackets name of the channel, the idea that we came up with this, like Alessandro, of course, used to live in Italy and we met traveling, and then I was visiting him. I think we came up with this in Italy, if I'm not mistaken, Alessandro, but remind me.
Yeah, that's correct.
So I went to go visit him in Italy one time, and we were, planning our days. I was only there for a couple of days. And he's like, oh, let's go out, go out and have a great time. We're going to Rome. We're going to have, some really good beers. And so it's like, oh, let's have like a beer just to kick off the evening. Right. And so we'll make it special. We'll choose like a good beer and we'll sit down together. And this will be our sort of like celebratory ceremonial beer to kick off the evening. And they were like, oh, it's almost like the opening bracket of the evening, like, the first beer. And then at the end of the night, when you're back home after going to the pubs and everything, you come back home and you have a good, like a special beer, something that you're saving to end the night, and you kind of close your beer brackets. It's the closing bracket beer. And so that's the concept of the name beer brackets that we had. And like, that's why we always say we're opening and closing our beer brackets, because that's like the whole idea behind it. But so
it's
what
really
we used to do,
I like your website. You put a lovely website together. It's really well done. Well done to you guys.
Thank you.
I think
Joe might be frozen. While we wait for him, I can add to his comment of the opening and closing beer brackets. I don't know if you can see the closing beer brackets is a little tilted, and that's because towards the end of the night you get a little, you might get a little sideways.
Well, wait till 8 o'clock now. I'll be like,
can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Sorry, my electricity just went out.
I can hear you, man.
So
you might be back.
I'm going off my phone data now, but I'm back.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Think so. While Joe's coming back, another really interesting story about Italy this time.
Okay, let me hear that.
Have you heard of a beer called Tennent's Extra?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's the end of the night beer. I've had it many times. Many times.
That, in the UK, we call that tramp juice. Because it's like 8%. It's 8% ABV, and you see them walking around 11 o'clock in the morning, drinking it, that sort of thing. But in Italy, so Tennent's moved production of Tennent's Extra to a small town in Italy, where the brewery was struggling. They took over the brewery, and they started producing Tennent's Extra there, because they saved the jobs and because they're now well thought of. When the people drinking Tennent's Extra there, they've got the umbrellas.
Oh yeah,
and they're drinking it out of fine wine glasses. It's a completely different kind of thought out thing in Italy, because of course they save jobs and whatnot. Yeah,
it's very funny that you mentioned that beer. I think Joe might remember this. At least this is when I growing up in Italy, my experience with that and all my age group and friends and so on like that. That's usually the beer you have at the end of the night when you've been, went out, like you're having something to eat at the end of the night, like you're closing beer in a sense, like, and you always have that. And I don't know if you remember, Joe, we went and after we went out that couple of days that you were there visiting, and we had that like panini at the end of the night.
Of course,
yeah. Exactly. And if I'm not mistaken, we had a tenets, and if we didn't, that was my mistake, because that's usually always what you drink there at the end of the night, like having a kebab or something. And at least that's my generation, my experience.
Because we had gone to see a Juventus game, and I'd always wanted to go see. Like growing up in Montreal, there's a big Italian population here, and so kids like just worshipped Juventus, the soccer club, growing up. So for me, it was like, oh, I'm going to visit him in Torino. Like, it's such a treat to be able to go see an actual Juventus game. So we were, and I was jet lagged. I hadn't slept the night before. I slept on the floor of an airport, the Dublin airport, like on a layover. It was just like terrible. And so like, I remember I was falling asleep during the game. So by the time we got like after the match to have, like a panini and a beer, I was just, I barely remember that. It's a beer dream from a long time ago.
I think while we're on the subject of beer in Italy, I think we should give a quick, and football, of course, a quick RIP to Scalacci, who passed away yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
99 hero, golden boot.
He's forever in the champions, Italian champions. So
that's
right to him. Glass to him.
Yeah. Yes, it's crazy. My electricity went out, so I'm tethering off my phone right now, going off my data. But that's why all the lights and everything are off. So hopefully, I think my computer's charged. I have enough energy here, so we should be okay. But
put some diesel in the generator.
Exactly. Okay, Alexander, how's the Old Peculier?
I am. Yeah, I will say, kudos to you for the review, how you described it. Obviously, I read a little bit on the website, but I find your description way more fitting, and I really like it because it has those dark notes, but it's still mixed in with some of those classic like ale aromas. Yeah, you still get some of those fruit, but I like the descriptor mysterious because it's almost it lures you in with the aroma, but then you get this very unexpected finish. Still being light, but drinkable and sessionable. I mean, I can easily drink pints of this, and it's just addictive.
It's really good. A touch of licorice in there as well.
Yes.
I just picked up there. Little touch of licorice in that taste. But yeah, it's not quite stout. It's not quite porter. It's not quite dark. It's almost like it's its own thing.
Perfectly described. It's almost like in between, just like you said, it's in between an ale, a stout, or porter. It's kind of like sitting there in the middle and just like eluding every possible descriptor. It's fantastic beer. So thank you for the recommendation. Like I'm glad I was able to find it.
You'll have to see if you can find some in Canada, Joe, if you can.
If I see it, I'm going to grab it. You know what? In Canada, right? We have the different provinces. That's how we're divided up in the state. And so Montreal is in Quebec. And then before this, I was living near Toronto in Ontario. And each province, like Canada's really weird with alcohol and how you can get it. So when I was in Ontario, you have to buy all your alcohol through these government dispensaries. Like independent stores aren't allowed to sell alcohol. But they had a really good selection of imported beer over there. More so than here, it's a lot more free. You can go to any corner store, buy beer. It's on every corner in every neighborhood. There's little independent shops, corner stores, markets that sell beer. But there you had to go to these government stores, but the selection was amazing. And they had a lot of British imports. They had like, the Greene King, they just had the Abbott Ale, but they had things like Iron Maiden's beer. What is it? The Trooper?
You thinking the Trooper, Robinson?
Yeah, the Trooper, right? They had like Tennant's, the Scottish beer, of course. And they had a lot. There's a big selection there. Bombardier, is that one as well?
Oh yeah, Bombardier, Wells and Young's Bombardier. Yeah,
there we go.
Yeah,
like that
fantastic.
One was really.
That was another brewery. That was another brewery that because you don't see Wells so much anymore. They were called Young's, and Wells were Youngs were on the bank of the River Thames in London. This is an example of the little fish biting the being bit by the big. So, Youngs were on the banks of the River Thames in London. Wells were in Bedfordshire, and they merged into Wells and Youngs. They moved into Bedfordshire. They got into a bit of trouble, kind of early 2015, maybe 14. They got bought up by Marston's. Marston's changed the name to Eagle Brewery. So Wells and Youngs disappeared completely.
Right.
And then of course Carlsberg bought Marston's. So even that beer, even the Bombardier is now owned by Carlsberg. So is the Hobgoblin. It was such a.
That's so
they
weird.
just come in and swooped, and they took the whole lot.
Speaking of Youngs, have you ever tried their double chocolate nitro stout? Have you ever tried that?
Fantastic. That's a Carlsberg beer now.
Is it? Okay, because that one, I could get that when I was living in Ontario. I could get that was everywhere for some reason.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Fantastic.
I thought it was so good.
It was a bigger beer exported to America than it was ever in the UK.
Really?
Because we didn't have it in the UK, but you guys... Is it Chad's Beer Reviews?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So Chad sent me a can of double chocolate stout, and I took the empty... Wells invited me to the brewery to do a video tour, and I took the empty can down the double chocolate stout because I knew it wasn't for sale in the UK. And they said, how on earth have you got that can? It's export only.
Yeah.
And I convinced them in the car. Her name was Joanna Dring. She was like the marketing guru for Wells and Youngs. I convinced them to sell double chocolate stout in the UK. They actually took my recommendation and sold the beer in the UK.
Hey,
but it only lasted a year or two. It was gone again.
Really?
Hey,
really
good to see you, man. Like that's you have a special beer magic there. If you can
Dude.
convince the brewery to.
I love talking all things beer. I could talk beer from the moment I wake up in the morning until.
There's one question that I think has been really relevant to us that we wanted to ask you, and I think this would be a good segue to it. So we've found over time doing this thing, like tasting all these different beers, reviewing all these different beers, you try all these different styles, you try everything, right? You try craft, you try the macro brands, you try everything in between. And we found that we always come back to lagers. And after sort of doing that journey of tasting everything and doing all the extremes, tasting like all the kettle sours and tasting all like, the barrel aged stouts, and you come back and we found like a really good lager is kind of like, there's nothing like it.
There's nothing like it, is there? No.
And we've talked to brewers, we've done like brewery tours and talked to brewers who've said the same things. Like, hey, our brewery, we brew IPAs exclusively, we do everything. But I mean, like at the end of the day, we're going and drinking a really good Pilsner. And so it's like, how do you feel about that? Because I find like that's sort of like the beer journey that a lot of people go on. Once you try everything, and then you come back to a really good, well brewed lager. There's nothing like it. Like you just appreciate it so much.
I first had these conversations I went to Sweden. I went to a beer kind of. My mind's gone.
Convention?
Apologies.
We'll edit it out.
A beer festival.
Or leave it in.
I went to a beer festival in.
There you go.
In Sweden, and we had a great day drinking. We were drinking Angry Chair Imperial Stouts from America there.
They're from Angry Chair. They're exactly here down the street, 20
we were
minutes
just
from where I
talking about
live.
doing a tour of Angry Chair before you jumped on the
So
call.
I had my first
so
Angry
crazy.
Chair beer, and everybody was raving about it, and they were going nuts, and it all sold out by like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and that sort of thing.
Down the street.
And I was like, it's great beer. It's great beer. But then we were all kind of like, well, when you've been to a beer festival and you if you travel there, you stay in a hotel, and because they put us all in the same hotel. So I'm sitting around the table. I think some famous kind of Norwegian brewer was there. Tool from Denmark. The head brewer was sitting next to me. We're all slightly hungover, buttering our toast. Another day at the festival. We got to go again. And we got on this very subject of beer and all of the wonderful kind of imperial stouts. And And then we talked about styles, and they were very much saying, hey, if we could get lager, my favorite when I'm not making beer, my favorite beer is the lager, and if we could get lager to take off, that would be a great thing. And I think that's a struggle all around the world, is to get a great quality lager to take off, because the big companies, the Fosters, the Carlins, the Budweisers, the Millers, they can make a lager that's just about good enough for the masses, can't they?
Yeah.
It's just about good enough. It's not bad enough that people are going to take their eye off the ball and, well, not their eye off the ball, but are going to go and buy.
It's just good enough that if it's ice cold, you can drink it, and it's like, there's nothing wrong with it.
Exactly. The craft brewers struggle to produce a lager low enough in price.
Right. That's key.
And to have that kind of variation in. I'm not saying all lager tastes the same, but if you drank an IPA from a macro brewery and you drank an IPA from a craft brewery, there's a vast difference.
Yeah.
If you drink a lager from a macro brewery and you drink a lager from, say, Stone or a craft brewer, Brewdog, there's not that much of a difference. There's not a huge jump in kind of
not as big of a difference. Quality. Right.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
And that's what all of the breweries are struggling with. The customer base is looking at going, why am I paying £1, or in your case dollars, why am I paying $1 or $2 more for my can of craft beer or can of craft lager when I can just buy a Miller that's going to kind of do the same thing? So, yeah, I love lager personally. I drink German lager all day long. I'm a massive fan of lager. But you're right. You can drink all of the sours, the imperial stouts, the IPAs, the hazy IPAs. Drinking a crisp lager, there's nothing quite like it, is there? No. There's nothing quite like it.
But you know what I find, to build off what you said? It's like the average consumer isn't going to notice enough of a difference to justify the price or justify the effort of going out to find a good craft lager, right? But when you are somebody who's, let's say, is in our position, who tries a whole bunch of different styles of beer of all different quality levels, the thing is, when you develop a palate for it and you find a good lager, you're so much more appreciative of it because you can taste the difference. You can taste that, oh my God, this is fresh. I can taste the fresh malts. Like it has a biscuity quality to it. There's hops, but it's not overpowering. It's like, and you get all these different flavor profiles, and you can tell the difference between that and a Budweiser or whatever it might be, right? And that is just so impressive because we've had brewers tell us doing a good lager is probably, there's nothing to hide behind. With an IPA, you can hide behind the hops and you can create something that's middle of the road. And if there's imperfections, it might be hidden a little bit by the strong hop character. But with a lager, there's nothing to hide behind. If there's a bad character there, if there's something that's a little off, you're going to taste it. You're going to taste every little imperfection.
Absolutely. And that's why a lot of the lager producers produce beers with rice.
Right.
Because I was in Stella Artois Brewery about 8 years ago in Belgium, and I spoke to the brewery about consistency, and they said, I'll put it very simply to you. If you had a bowl of boiled rice in China and you had a bowl of boiled rice in Italy or Canada, where you guys are from, it's still going to taste like a bowl of boiled rice. It's going to taste exactly the same wherever you are in the world, because it's consistently tasting the same. And that's why these big brewers brew with rice, because they can nail down consistency.
That's interesting.
With extracting sugars from the rice, rather than a batch of malt that might have come from, they haven't got enough malt and they got a source malt from somewhere else, and then you have then variations in flavour. But with boiled rice is boiled rice, isn't it? You know,
that makes sense.
That makes sense to you guys.
It does. It does.
Yeah,
it does.
That's what told me at Stella Artois.
See, you're full of legends and stories and anecdotes, which we love here at Beer Buckets.
Oh, I love bringing these stories, because we're all. I'm what I'm looking forward to the most is looking through the comments and you know, so this guy's full of rubbish or whatever. Or, you know, he might know a little bit of his stuff, and yeah, I I quite like to I'll watch this back on your channel, and I'll reply to a few comments and say hi to a few people, and yeah, it'd be great.
Yeah, I'm sure they like
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
No, we're all about the legends. We always say that we call them intangibles when we speak about beers. It's like those elements that come into play that you don't really necessarily think consciously about, but they kind of like play a part in the beer experience. So, like to your point, like if you have a beer at the brewery and you try it there, there's a different atmosphere after you've talked to the brewer, you've experienced the whole setting. It's different than just cracking open a can without knowing anything about that beer and tasting it. And the kind of stories you're bringing, like now, like at least in my mind, all the ones you mentioned, I'm going to go back and look at them and say, oh, what is this? And I'm always going to remember this situation and you recommending them. And that to me is I think, and for Joe too, is like it's kind of like the fun aspect of doing this. Like, beer connects people,
it's the fun part
connects
of beer.
Like situation. Yeah,
so much
Isn't it fascinating?
Yeah.
Isn't it fascinating how we've never met before now? In 40 minutes we've been chatting without any awkwardness, without any kind of pauses, without any kind of what do we say next. Beer brings people together. And we can just talk for forever. It's such a fascinating subject, isn't it? So I got a question for you guys. So the reasons why you guys have started, probably as you mentioned, COVID. But what have you guys learned over the last 4 years when it comes to kind of like beer and where is beer heading? Are we finally? I hope you're going to say yes to this. Are we finally over hazy IPA?
Oh God, I hope so. I hope so. I'll let you start this, Alceder. What do you think?
That's a tough question, but I really hope we're over hazy IPAs too. And I think to answer the first part of your question, I like to dream about that people are going to get a little bit more conscious about what they drink. And I personally like to approach beer as a journey. And I think what's important about it is not necessarily the journey itself, is what it teaches about you and what you like. And you're always going to be evolving. And I think, a lot of times people get stuck on styles and they think, oh, it's this and that, like, and they want one thing or the other. Yeah. Well, in my mind, like what I've learned here doing this is that it's a transient thing. And you're going to change. And even revisiting something you've tried before might change your opinion. There are some things that are, kind of like anchors that you always go back to. Yeah. But that's what makes it fun. Like you have those, you don't have to always drink and only drink those. And nobody is battling for them. Like you can try other things and discover new fun things and then come back and try those again. So tying into the second part of the question, I think styles are always going to change. There's always going to be something new. What's not going to change is that it's about people, the stories and the people that are around it, and being, together and have like a fun time and building a safe space where everybody can talk and share their opinion about what they're drinking. That's my take.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
My friend,
I've got a lot of, that's a really good question, Simon. I've got a lot to say about that because I think this has been so fun for us the past couple of years doing this. And I think there's different kinds of beer YouTube channels, but there's different kinds of beer drinkers out there too, right? I mean, you have the people who are 100% only drink Coors Light and they'll defend it till the day they die and they think it's the best beer in the world. You have people 100% drink Budweiser or Busch Light and they think it's the best beer in the world. And then you have the people who only drink craft beers or only drink IPAs and they think anything else is garbage that deserves to be poured down the toilet, right? You have this, and you have people in the middle. You have this whole spectrum of people who are passionate about beer that come together in a lot of ways to watch what everybody does, what everybody puts on YouTube. So you have these different opinions that get thrown out there. Yeah, that's what I've always found fascinating because because we're in different places, if we want to review a beer, we have to both be able to get it. So we do bigger brands. We do beers that most people can find, right? So you get this interesting middle ground where it's people who are passionate about beer, but aren't necessarily just the craft beer drinkers because they know about or they like the beers that we're talking about, the bigger brands, like we just did Sam Adams Boston Lager or, the big Mexican lagers that we reviewed recently. So it's this interesting middle ground of people. But what's funny is that there's gatekeepers, right? That's one thing that I've learned the past couple of years, where there's the people who only drink the craft beer, who are very sort of against anything that's a bigger brand and think it's all garbage and not worth drinking. And then there's the people who, if you say anything negative about their Coors Light, are going to freak out and call you a snob, right?
Yeah.
And so it's so interesting because it's like, and it's so subjective, right? If you really enjoy a Coors Light, if you like pulling out a nice cold can of Coors Light at the end of the day, and that tastes like heaven to you, then that tastes like heaven. Then that's the best beer in the world, right?
One of my earliest lessons in beer, because I was a proper beer evangelist when I first started, and I would not look down, but I'd be like, oh, come on, there's so much of this stuff out there, and I'd push. The more you try and push a Coors Light drinker, the more he's going to push back.
Right.
The more he's going to go, no. And I found that if you just maybe do it gently, maybe, you know, I'm drinking this, you're not allowed any. That works.
You can't have this. You do like the toddler thing with them,
So it's so, you know, it's so good. You know, do that instead of like, please try this beer. I used to be that guy. Please try this beer. It's going to blow your mind. And then they pull that face, you know, the Coors Light drinker face. Oh, what's this? You know, like, can you imagine a Coors Light drinker trying?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
You know, he's drinking soup.
Yeah. But that's what's so interesting about it, because people are looking for different things, right? Somebody who really loves Coors Light is looking for something that's refreshing, but doesn't have too much of an aftertaste, that doesn't really taste like much, because they just want something that's going to go down easy. And then there's people who want character out of their beer, who want to be challenged, right? Who want to have that intense hop flavor, that intense sour that you get off, you know, a kettle sour or something. They're looking for that. And so it's like, it's such a broad spectrum of people that are passionate about beer, and that's been the most interesting thing. One thing I wanted to ask you is, because if you see like a lot of the biggest beer YouTube channels, I don't know if this is coincidence or not, I don't think it is, they all tend to be in the UK. And I think, and I've noticed like not a most, but a big chunk of our viewership seems to be in the UK as well.
Yeah.
There is like a beer culture or an appreciation for beer in the UK that's different, I think, from North America, in the sense that people are very curious and very appreciative of beer culture, more so than they are anywhere else in the world, I think. And I think the fact that some of the biggest YouTube channels are based in the UK is evidence of that. What do you think about that?
I'm going to blow your mind with this answer.
Okay, blow it.
Blow your mind, because when I first started, it was completely dominated by American beer YouTubers.
Really?
Joe D. So I've got 81,000, I think, subscribers now.
Yeah.
When I started on zero, Joe D already had 2,000. So he was already 2,000 times the size of my channel when I started. Chad Blends, Chad's Beer Reviews, Chris Stelt's Big Ignatian.
Yeah.
Big Ignatian was huge. I couldn't hold a candle to him. It was, if I got anywhere near him, my candle would go out. They were huge channels. And what really spurred me on to carry on and to push and to try so hard was, so we have a saying in the UK, if you're a singer in the UK, a singer-songwriter, and you can make it in America, you've made it.
Right.
You've made it. So Oasis, they kind of made it in America. Blur, not so much. Huge bands in the UK.
Yeah, Blur's not that big in North America compared to the UK. I mean, in the 90s, they had their presence, of course, but not as, they're like a religion in the UK, right?
Massive. So I'm of this mentality. I was just born like the grit. So I come from a South Wales mining port, where all of the coal come down from South Wales, from the valleys, and basically Margaret Thatcher in the 1980s completely closed it down. So we went from rich Welsh people to literally everybody was unemployed, and this town where I lived decimated in the 1980s. All of the hotels shut down, all the houses were boarded up when I was growing up. So I've been brought up on this kind of like true grit, survival kind of attitude that's been kind of drilled into me. So when I started, I really was struggling to get a foothold in the what was then the American beer scene. Some people would decide to send me. I got a Dogfish Head 60-minute and a 90-minute, and I just kept on going and going and going. And so I thought I kind of cracked it a little bit. And there was another early YouTube channel that I think they set up the studio in a garage.
Okay.
That was big. Agile H Productions.
Okay.
They were a big Better Beer Society. Have you heard of those guys?
Mm-hmm.
Better Beer. They had a song written for them. They had Greg Koch from Stone Brewing go to their studio and sit and be interviewed, and it was like a panel of judges, and it was huge. But they decided to do a top 10, or maybe it's like top 10 or top 20 beer reviewers in the world.
Yeah.
And it started at number 20, and my name wasn't in the top 20, and I was thinking, oh, maybe I made it in the top 10. Maybe I'm in the top 10, and we got to top 5, top 3, top 2, and it got to number 1, and it was, I think it was something like, I think it was Big Ignition, the one, and I didn't even get in the top 20 of this. And Agile H Productions, Better Beer Authority, was basically what I am today, what Johnny Garrett was, is huge beer YouTube channels, but they were all in America. and that kind of for a day it kind of burst my bubble a bit. I was kind of like deflated and gutted, but then after that kind of mining spirit kicked in. That kind of decimated town that I've been through kicked in, and I really dug deep. I dug really, really deep, and has really grown the channel from that. And I never looked back after that. I thought, I'm going to make it. I'm going to make it if everything depends on it. I'm going to make it. And I pushed and pushed and pushed. So I got Better Beer Authority in America to really thank for where I've got today. And but I don't know what happened to the American beer YouTube community. I don't know why it felt like it did. I don't know why I think Better Beer Authority, I think they opened up a pub and a restaurant with a brewery inside. So I think they actually went into the industry.
Okay.
Crystal's just suddenly stopped with a massive following. Massive. I was on something like 8,000 subscribers and he had 50,000. 50,000. So if you think of where I am now at 81, where he would have been now would be in the millions. He would have been in the millions if he carried on. So I can't put my finger onto why it kind of imploded in the way it did. But what was left was myself, Johnny, and we just kept going, I suppose. Yeah. With the beer scene we had around here, there's always beer. There's breweries. There's a brewery in every town in the UK. So there's always something to do, you know? There's always something to bang on about. If you like. Did that answer your question? Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
I'm banging on a little bit there, but yeah.
No, that's what we like.
I just find it really interesting because, like, you look at it now, and you mentioned, like, that channel, Chad's Beer Reviews. He does these things where he, like, lists out the top beer YouTubers by views. And so he does, like, the legwork, and he posts these things, like, once a month. And so you're, like, always number 2. And it's interesting to see because there's, like, Craft Beer Channel, of course, is number 1 right now. And then you were number 2 for views. And if you look at the top, like, 3, 4, and I think it's like, I think I saw an episode where you went to a beer festival and you met, it was Paul's Beer Reviews?
Yeah. That was the Great British Beer Festival. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think he's in the top 5 as well in terms of views every month. And it was all just channels from the UK, and I found that really interesting.
I'm looking forward to the updated one from Chad because we had a record month in July. We had 750,000 views, 750,000 views in the month of July. So I look forward to Chad's updated. Maybe I pick Johnny for 1 month. Me and Johnny, we're good friends. Whenever we see each other, I remember a couple of years ago. I went to the Great British Beer Festival and I snuck up behind Johnny, as you do after a few beers.
Of course. Put him in a
I
headlock.
stuck it behind him. And I'm married with 3 kids, but I got a funny sense of humor. I grabbed his ass from behind him. He kind of, he kind of jumped in. And he was
Go
like,
right in there.
And he was really angry. You could see he was angry up to the point until he seen me, and then he was just like, "You," and then we just had a hug. And so me and Johnny, he's a great guy. He's a great guy, and what a beer enthusiast Johnny Garrett is, and Brad.
We did.
They fantastic.
We did one of these episodes with him, and we talked to him for like an hour and a half. It was great. Yeah, really cool
lovely,
guy.
lovely, beautiful man.
Yeah, it's funny. We broke into the top 20 finally. We're number 15 last month.
Yes. Yeah. When this comes out on YouTube, I'm gonna push this like crazy, because we need a big American beer channel, don't we? There's so much beer in America, and Canada, of course, and of course Italy. There's so much beer around these countries that you guys need you need 100,000 plus channel in America, surely. There has to be.
You know what? We've been plugging it. We do it. It's such a fun hobby for us. Thankfully, like it's not our. When we first started doing it, we're like, if this can become a primary source of income, of course, that's fantastic. That's amazing if that happens. Now it's just sort of like a hobby.
It's possible. It's happened for me. Just keep pushing.
But we have our jobs, we have our careers. If it ever got to that point, it'd be something to consider. But for us, it's like a passion. It's just something we do for fun, right? So anything we get in terms of subscribers, views, it's just like a fun bonus. It's more like here's just our passion so much. But yeah, it's of course, it's nice to see people enjoying. It's nice to see views tick up. It's nice to see subscribers tick up, and of course,
it's great. It's a marvelous thing to see your channel growing, to see it growing, and to see some of the best comments I get on YouTube. My favorite comment that I read out to myself is that. I used to be a Carling drinker, or I used to be a Bud drinker, or I used to be a Foster drinker. And it must be the same for you. And you get that comment where they found your channel, they're drinking good beer because of you. And I think that's the main reason why I do it.
Yeah.
Is that I've turned somebody's head towards good beer.
I agree. I do want to apologize for Carling, by the way. That is a Canadian beer from this province.
It is.
I live in now, and I apologize for that, for the exporting.
That's a very Canadian thing to say, Joe. You're apologizing for your beer.
But what's the ABV of Carling in Canada?
I don't even know. Carling?
It's like 3.4 here.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it that low?
Something crazy. Maybe 3.6 maximum, but it's something like the 3.6%. So I was sent Australian Fosters recently, and it's like 5%, and it was beautiful. It was lovely, and the Fosters we get here is 3.6. So it'd be interesting to see what Carling is in Canada.
They make a lot of like, malt liquors here. So you have like, if you go to any corner store, there's like Carling 5%, 6%, 7%, 8.8%, 9%.
Really?
Oh yeah, they make like, and they come in like 40s, and so it's just Carling malt liquors alongside Colt 45. Like that's their big market here. And then
I tell you what I'll do. I'll pay you guys for shipping. And
to send it over,
one of them bad boys over. I'll do a review of like 7% Canadian Carling versus the 3.4.
They make it 10% too.
that would be.
That'll knock you on your ass, Simon. If you have one of those, I'm telling you that.
Carling is the #1 selling beer in it just got passed by Moretti. Carling was the #1 selling beer in the UK. If I make a video showing people 10% Carling,
okay, I will get your information. I'll message you and I'll send you something for sure.
We should make that happen.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, I'll sort the shipping and everything out and the cost of the beer and everything else.
You know what we should do? We should definitely, like, obviously you'll do the review, but we should get on a live one time all together and drink that and give live impressions. I think that would be very fun. I've never tried it, so it'll be fun.
Drink it out the bottle. with a brown bag on the outside of the bottle.
Exactly.
But I have a question, if I may, Simon. Like, as I was listening to your story, like I opened here my closing beer brackets that I picked because I wanted to ask you if you had a chance to try this.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah. Tint Meadow. Yeah. English Trappist Ale. 7.4%. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I was fascinated because like again, this is another one that like showed up here recently, and I have like one of in my list of I want to try all the Trappist beers, right? Like, and I knew about this one, but I tried it recently because it showed up here in my local beer store, and I tried it a few months back, like on an episode that we recorded, and I thought like I would bring it here today just in case because I wasn't sure if you had it or not, like, and I wanted to hear your impression or just like your take on it.
I think it was about 3 years ago. But it followed all of the kind of traditions of traditional kind of Trappist. I would say probably Belgian double, maybe pushing Belgian triple in terms of it was quite dry. It was quite peppery. It was a very, very nice drink. Very, very.
That's good memory.
Yeah. Good. I remember it being a good beer because, of course, Trappist beer. We all think of Belgium, don't we? We all think of.
Yeah.
I think I remember Spencer. Is it?
Spencer, yeah. They shut down. Yeah.
Yes.
They shut down. That's a shame because I remember the like Spencer Trappist was before Tint Meadow, and then all of a sudden, I think every single kind of like monkish place in the world was thinking, oh, can we look through our history books to see if it's possible to open up a monk brewery? I had one sent from Italy.
Oh, the Monte Cassino one.
Yes, that's it. So they're claiming that they've been brewing beer originally like 1,500 years ago. That's what they're claiming on.
Aren't they like in Piedmont? They're in Alba, if I'm not mistaken. Isn't that where they're from?
Oh, I don't. My apologies. I don't.
No, you're fine. I think they're in northern Italy, if I'm not mistaken.
I think they are.
No, I think they're down. They're down.
They're down there, like the Monte Cassino one. Okay.
Oh, look at that. Okay.
But they claim they claim to be, and I think you're going to see a lot of that going forward, where not necessarily the wrong word would be to say jumping on the Belgian bandwagon, but at this moment in time I can't think of anything else to say, so I am going to use that. But there's been a lot of that over the last few years, haven't there? Spencer, UK, Italy's now having a look at it. It's good. It's good beer. It's certainly a style of beer, isn't it? Yeast strain, malts, the hops, the spices. You can definitely kind of get to that kind of Belgian triple, Belgian double, if you really wanted to. If you're going to put, I think a lot of it is this beautiful marketing that always seems to come with Trappist.
The packaging.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. It's always that kind of like nice, stumpy bottle, beautiful. Put the glass between your fingers here. Or,
have you ever tried this one, the Negro Modelo?
Oh, I had a look. That gets some great traction on your channel, doesn't it? Those beers do some great traction.
This beer is a beer secret. I got to tell you, Simon, because we did a review of it. It's got like 5,000, which for us, like people are passionate about this beer. This is a beer secret. It is delicious. It is so
the dark one. Is it the Negro?
Yeah, it's the Negro. So it's
the Negro. Yeah, that's the dark one.
It's like inspired by a Vienna lager, but it's delicious. It's roasty, it's malty, but it's clean, it's light. It is really, really, really fantastic. If you can find it, I don't know how available it is in the UK, but if you can get your hands on it,
every now and again. We'll see it in like a bargain store, or weirdly, we'll see Modelo in we have a place called Home Bargains where you can buy 4 beers for £4. Yeah. So it's £1 a bottle.
Okay.
And we'll come across that sort of thing sporadically in a corner shop type of thing.
Yeah.
It's not something. So it's the same company as Corona, isn't it? Corona Lager, Modelo.
Yep.
Yeah, Modelo.
Modelo owns.
Yeah. So we're all Corona. The whole UK market is Corona television adverts all of the time. It's all Corona. We don't really see Modelo. And so, interesting fact, my brother-in-law, he likes to slice the limes up, put them in the top of his Corona bottle.
Yeah.
I took the Modelo up to him, And he was saying, "Oh, what's that?" And I said, "Oh, this is the proper kind of owner of Corona. Modelo Brewery is the owner of Corona." And he had the bottle, and because it wasn't Corona, he was like, "Oh, it's okay." Like again, like your Coors Light. It's okay, but I'm going to go back to my Corona, and it's probably the same beer.
You know what? I notice actually a big difference between like the blonde, like the Modelo Especial, which is like the the blonde lager. I noticed actually a significant difference between that and Corona. Like the Modelo is like a little bit maltier. It's a little bit hot. It's got more character. It's just got a little bit more flavor to it. I think that's what their beers are known for. Like if you want something that's really light, super easy to drink, almost like you're not drinking beer, then you go with Corona. But if you want something that has a little bit of flavor to it, then the Modelo is more up your alley. But they're actually like not significant, because like we talked about before with lagers, like there's a very small difference we're talking about here, but they're different for sure. We really
love the dark, the Modelo, the Negro Modelo, the Vienna lager style.
It's exactly really good. It's a very well kept secret in the beer world. It's delicious.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. It's been a number of years since I tried it, but I remember liking it.
Quick question, like going back a little bit, like on the lager, let's say trend, like since we got into the Vienna lager topic, what would you say if you had to pick your one lager that that's the one you can on your bucket list, or the one you can drink on the desert island? Which do you have one that is kind of like, oh, that's my go-to?
Oh, yes. So most people in this situation would probably say Augustiner. Augustiner, great, fantastic, fantastic beer.
Yeah, that's the one I had with you, Joe, a couple of times as a pre-beer with the the wrapping around. It's one of the 5 Munich breweries, or the Munich breweries, one of the oldest ones.
Right.
But I believe beer can be elevated by the moment. So beer can be elevated by, if you're on a sandy beach in Spain and you're boiling hot, you've just done a couple of hours walk, or you've been walking on or swimming in the sea, and you come on, and you get that ice cold beer, that can be the best beer in the world at that very time.
Yes. And the intangibles.
Exactly. So I went to a German brewery called Uberquell. I was invited. It was quite a stressful process because it was during 2020. The airport had just opened back up. I had to fill out millions of forms to travel. The restrictions were incredible. So I did all of that, got through all the airports, got through the flight. It was so much paperwork, so much to do. I then had like a 2-hour train journey, and then I finally arrived at this brewery. And I turned up in Hamburg, northern Germany, which claims to be the beer central of Germany before Munich. These, you will hear though that from cities when you
of course.
They got, but anyway, I turned up in Hamburg in Germany. I was thirsty. I was hungry. I had my rucksack on. I was sweating. The kind of thing that we do. I travelled all day. So I arrived at this brewery. They had outside fermenters, and at the bottom of the outside fermenters was like a wooden kind of like makeshift building with a door.
Yeah.
And I was handed my lovely German, not this type of thing, but a lovely German, well, let's say this, a lovely German pint glass.
Yeah.
I was told to open the door, and I was told to pour myself a fresh Helles lager from the fermenter. The beer had not moved 5 yards. It was all brewed in this fermenter. Open the tap. I travelled all day, and this Uberquell Helles lager people were sitting out, the sun was shining, people were sitting out enjoying themselves. They were eating pizza that was being made at the brewery.
Sounds like heaven.
Exactly that. I travelled all day. I drank this pint of Helles,
especially
like
after traveling all day.
Yeah, and it was the best. That probably was the best pint of lager that I ever had in that kind of mindset moment.
Simon, this is perfect, and I got it. This transitions into my next question, which I just got to let you guys know. I still don't have electricity. My phone's going to die, so we might have to wrap this up in the next couple of minutes, unfortunately.
Cool.
But I did have one last question for you. So we filmed an episode that we haven't posted yet, basically on what is your favorite time to have a beer? What's your favorite occasion to have a beer? And so we listed out kind of like our top moments, where it could be like, for us, our top moment was sort of like on a Sunday afternoon cooking dinner, and you're sort of crack open a beer while you're cooking. It could be the airport beer, the classic like airport terminal beer, right? That always tastes. If you could pick your favorite beer, like your perfect situation to have a beer in, where you think it tastes the most delicious and it's the most satisfying, what would it be?
It's that kind of moment, isn't it? It's that moment, that Sunday afternoon, that kind of Saturday afternoon. I spent so me and my wife brought up two kids without having a babysitter, literally for 18 years, and our youngest has finally got to a stage now where she can be left alone. Yeah, and we've stayed in for 16 years. It's one of the reasons why I started my YouTube channel was to give myself a slight social life in the kitchen or the conservatory, drinking different beers, just to feel slightly like an adult.
I've got a 3-year-old, so I understand completely.
You totally understand. Get the kids to bed, and then you can become an adult again, and you can drink some great beer. But so I would say that the Friday afternoons, where I can now meet my wife from work, just a few yards up. She works in a pharmacy, and then we kind of roll down the hill to a place called the King William. It's short to the Billy. William. We go to the Billy, and I order a glass of wine for my wife, and I have a pint of Staro Pramen.
Okay.
The locals call it strap-on. So you pint of strap-on and a glass of wine. And I got the beer garden then, and the sun's shining, and it's that reward. It's that reward of 16 to 18 years of bringing kids up, and loving it, or loving bringing the kids up. But that end of the tunnel, that kind of like a little bit of freedom. Let's have a pint of Staro Pramen.
Yeah. Well, Simon, look, if you're up for it, we got to do this again, because I still have like a million questions I wanted to ask you.
Of course.
Talk about that. I don't have time to get to, even though we've been talking for over an hour and we haven't gotten to like so many things. Thank you so much for joining us, man. This was amazing. This was incredible.
Thank you very much.
Meet you finally.
Alessandro.
It's a pleasure.
Joe, it's been absolutely wonderful. It's been really wonderful. I've never we've never spoke before now. Nope. It's like three brothers talking.
Exactly.
It's the beer that does it. It's the beer that does it.
It's the beer world. It's people who are passionate about beer. This is what we found. Everybody we've talked to, from we talked to Steve Gilsonen, the head of quality control for Guinness, who was like the former master brewer. Like everybody from that level down to like people who just like beer a lot. Everybody's cool.
Yeah. Everyone's cool. We're all
Everybody
cool
in the beer world is just nice.
Yeah, absolutely. You're all cool guys.
Yeah.
Cool.
Beer people are good people.
Absolutely.
Right.
It's been an absolute pleasure to join you on your show. It's been great, and I wish you the very best for the future.